am the real heiress. The day my biological parents brought me back, the fake heiress jumped off a tall building. She left a final note. Mom and Dad, if I can't keep being your child, I'd rather die. Mom was so heartbroken she fainted. Dad shouted, our daughter, whom we've raised with so much love for so many years, has been driven to death by you. Are you satisfied now? Looking at the fake heiress and her foster mom, who looked slightly alike, countless memories of being abused flashed before me. Before I could explain, the person I loved pushed me off the building. Before dying, I heard him say, she just wanted a home. You deserve this. When I opened my eyes again, that very same person was leading me to a deserted alley. I smirked. In this life, sending them all to hell isn't too much, right? Lily, I've got something good to show you, Nolan said, holding my hand as he took me into the empty alley. He looked around nervously, afraid of being seen. I knew this alley well, his figure haunting many nightmares from my past life. It was today, right here, that my past life's fate changed forever. In my previous life, he sold me off while I was still in school. I went from being a wealthy heiress to the daughter of a barmaid at the lowest rung, suffering all kinds of humiliation and abuse, always fending off unwanted advances. I slowly said, is the good thing you want to show me a middle-aged woman in a plaid skirt? Nolan turned around in surprise. How do you know? Smiling, I pointed to the woman at the entrance of the alley. Look, there she is waving at us. Nolan turned his head and indeed saw Wendy, gripping my hand tighter, looking at me with a complex expression. Lily, you're strong and brave. Even if you're poor, you'll be fine. But Candy is different. She needs the finest care, otherwise she'll die. In my last life, I didn't understand what he meant. In this life I did. Because he cared about Candy, he was willing to help her mom kidnap me, so she could replace me and enjoy my family's wealth, while I endured suffering for Candy. That's why in my last life, when I was finally found, Candy left a suicide note. She knew if the truth came out, she'd face a horrible death. She ruined my life with her death. And Nolan, feeling sorry for his Candy, decided I should also pay with my life. As for my biological parents, they never bothered to hear a word from me or ask how I fared all those years outside. I couldn't understand why, until I learned it was because Candy had a face strikingly similar to mine. She was my father's illegitimate daughter. And my mom? Because Candy resembled me and could easily please her, she accepted Candy in no time. In this lifetime, sending them all to hell isn't too much, right? Wendy brought me back home. It wasn't even 100 miles, a fancy villa district on one end, and a rundown shack on the other. Wendy seemed pleased that I didn't cause a fuss, and she threatened me while pointing at the grimy storeroom. From now on, you'll live there. If you dare to call the police, I'll kill you. Understand? I nodded obediently. Got it, Auntie. She looked me up and down, snickering. Rich kids sure are brave, staying so calm after being kidnapped. I lowered my head, my long lashes fluttering. I was pretending to be kidnapped on purpose, wasn't I? How else could I justifiably lead her to her death? In my previous life, when she took me home, she chained me up with a heavy iron chain to prevent escape. Any resistance would result in her beating me harshly. Once she was done, she'd cleanse my wounds with salt water, ensuring I feared even the thought of retaliation. But now, given the chance to do it again, I needed a new strategy, one that allowed me comfort while making her suffer. In my previous life, I lived here for too long, and I knew her quirks by heart. She liked salty soup, liked her dishes cooked with garlic but served without, and insisted on ironing clothes as soon as they dried, shoes facing the cabinet. She often tried looking for a reason to beat me, even grabbed a broom, but could never find a valid reason. Somehow, I understood her better than she knew herself. Auntie, dinner's ready. Your favorite, braised pork with extra sugar. Wash up and eat. The sheets are changed, and I notice the pillow seems low. I've stacked two together for a more comfortable rest. Also, I've polished your shoes. Her shock and acceptance evolved in just 12 days. She thoroughly trusted and embraced me, thinking I was timid, humble, and utterly under her control. She then openly called Candy, checking on her well-being, and how my parents were treating her. As Candy smoothly integrated with my parents, thanks to my lover's help, Wendy's face beamed with joy. Then she resumed her old trade, entertaining clients, planting them throughout the house, and purposely asking me to fetch tissues for them. Wendy wanted me to follow her path, ensuring her precious daughter would remain safe. A month passed, and though I had several chances to escape, I didn't. I was waiting for someone, and finally he showed up, John. In my past life, he often stormed into my room, drunk, and I'd defend myself with scissors from under my pillow. He beat me, causing a concussion, and leaving my left leg crippled. Wendy never took me to the hospital, letting me fend for myself. This time, like before, he eyed me eagerly. Wendy, who's this young girl? She looks stunning. Wendy laughed mockingly. She's my cousin from the countryside, staying for a while. He looked at me lecherously. Hey there, sweetie, what's your name? I didn't answer, instead retreating to the storeroom and locking the door. 5 minutes later, Wendy banged on my door. Hey, come out and cook. John's staying for dinner, make extra. He likes spicy. I obediently opened the door and went to cook. John leered at me, and Wendy seemed perfectly fine with it. I quietly switched the cup Wendy handed me. There were 5 dishes and a soup, plus a steaming hot pot of chicken simmering over an alcohol burner. John was thrilled after just a few bites, and went downstairs to grab a case of beer, starting to guzzle it down. Wendy too found the food too spicy. She finished the rice in her bowl, drank 2 glasses, and then passed out on the couch. John, halfway through eating, was just in his underwear staring at me. I put down my bowl, pretending to shiver as I stood up. Uncle, you take your time eating. I'll head back to my room. As expected, John grabbed me. Seeing this, I pretended to be too scared to move, screaming and backing away. Thinking I was terrified, John tried to catch me, but I wriggled free and darted around the living room. I glanced at the unconscious Wendy and intentionally stumbled into the coffee table, knocking everything to the floor. Soon, the smell of burning filled the air, and small flames appeared on the couch. Watching John's greedy face approach, I smirked coldly and pulled out the scissors I had prepared from my pocket. This time, if I don't make a big scene, how will I get home? As expected, a raging fire soon started, quickly attracting the arrival of firefighters and police. Seeing them arrive, I fainted from exhaustion. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital, the smell of disinfectant heavy in the air. The room was filled with people, both familiar and unfamiliar. My mom's eyes were swollen from crying, and my dad's eyes were red. Nolan stood in the corner with Candy, their expressions unclear. The female officer was the first to notice I was awake, exclaiming excitedly, "You're awake." Mom grabbed my hand, her voice trembling. "Lily, my Lily." I was stunned for a moment before tears streamed down my face. "Mom, Dad, you finally found me." I almost died. Really? Who could not be moved by such a scene? I glanced at Candy out of the corner of my eye. She looked terrified, shaking. Nolan stared at me darkly, like a venomous snake. Meeting his gaze, I smirked slightly, but my eyes were icy. Wendy and John were dealt with, now it was their turn. A doctor came over to check on me, shaking his head sadly. Mild concussion, damage to the left eardrum, dislocated right hand. She'll need at least half a month in the hospital. There are also many bruises, suggesting at least a month of abuse. It's horrible treating a young girl like this. Also, she's suffered significant psychological trauma and may be emotionally unstable. Be prepared. Mom's tears fell again, and Dad clenched his jaw, cursing under his breath. Those bastards. I won't let them get away with this. I lowered my eyes, my long lashes hiding the mockery in them. The female officer, seeing I was calm, asked gently, "Lily, the bad guys are caught now. You're safe, so there's no need to be scared. Can you tell me what happened?" I was shaking, but my expression was oddly calm. It was clear my mind had shut down to cope with fear. "Wendy kidnapped me," I said. "She wanted her daughter Candy to take my place and live a better life. She hit me every day. I couldn't escape. There were no windows in the room, and she watched me constantly. When men came for her, she'd make me watch. The other times weren't so bad, but this time a bald man came. He was terrifying. I tried to run but couldn't. I cried, my voice breaking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just too scared." The female officer patted my shoulder gently. "You did well. It's not your fault. They're the ones to blame. She continued, the bald guy is injured, and Wendy survived, but with severe burns and level 6 disability from the fire. Do you know how the fire started? I thought hard for a moment. The bald guy pushed me when I was running, and the dishes fell to the floor. Maybe the alcohol burner fell onto the couch then. The officer nodded. There were sleeping pills in Wendy's water cup. Any idea where they came from? I shook my head, puzzled. I don't know. Did the bald guy bring them? Was he planning to give them to me? The officer nodded knowingly and pressed on. Do you remember how you got kidnapped? I looked at Nolan standing in the corner. His hands were clenched into fists, but I said, I don't remember. Nolan sighed in relief, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead. The officer gave him a meaningful look and said, all right, if you ever remember, let me know. Okay, I agreed. As she left, she glanced at me with a complex expression. I looked back at her, my eyes clear. Everything seemed too coincidental, but the wounds on my body were proof I was telling the truth. As soon as the officer left, Candy knelt in front of me, her forehead instantly reddening, as she hit it on the floor 3 times. She cried, trembling all over. Lily, my mom was the one who kidnapped you, but I really didn't know about it. She never cares about me and hits me all the time. That's why I ran away. It's a good thing Nolan took me in. From the corner, Candy's parents, whom I had protected in a past life, now looked cold. They had only adopted her for less than half a month. How could their feelings compare to their own daughter, who had just been kidnapped? I asked softly, you really didn't know? Candy quickly shook her head. I beckoned her over with a finger. Come here. She got up and walked closer, leaning down to look at me. I grabbed her chin hard, wishing I could crush her jawbone, but not having the strength. I chuckled quietly, really didn't know? I heard your mom call you many times, asking about my parents' preferences. Wasn't it to help you win them over and replace me completely? Candy's face went pale again. Nolan's mouth twitched, wanting to defend her, but he remained silent under my faint smile. Dad narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. No wonder there were so many things similar to Lily, and she knew our tempers too. Mom showed her disgust openly. Oh, now my dad suddenly knows how to distance himself. Candy's got some real nerve and determination. She rushed to the window, biting her lip, looking oh so pitiful, and said, Dad, Mom, Lily, since none of you believe me, I'll prove my innocence with my life. Then she tried to climb up, ready to jump. Nolan was lightning fast, darting forward to grab her. Their timing was so perfect. I wouldn't buy that there wasn't some rehearsal beforehand. With a sorrowful expression, Nolan said, Uncle, Aunt Lily, you guys really misunderstood Candy. She's never been close to her mom since she was a kid, so I've been supporting her. There must be some misunderstanding. Her house was burned by Lily. Her mom's got severe burns and is hospitalized. When she's out, she'll get arrested. Candy's got nowhere else to go. She's really a victim too. Uncle, Aunt, just keep her here. She's genuinely pitiful. Now every media outlet's covering this story. If you keep her, everyone will think you're kind-hearted, and Candy will be grateful and repay you someday. Candy hung her head, looking as pitiful as she could manage. Dad and Mom hesitated, their faces showed doubt. Gratitude and repayment didn't mean much to them, but they knew the benefits of a good reputation. Finally, my dad spoke up, why don't we just let her stay? It's not easy for the kid either. I reached out and brushed back the hair by my ear, revealing my scarred wrist. My mom's hesitation turned to indifference and disgust. Is Candy trying to atone on behalf of your mom for me? If that's the case, you can stay. Calmly, I said. But I can't promise that one day I won't suddenly remember what your mom did to me and take it out on you. Hearing she could continue living with us, Candy nodded eagerly. I'm willing, it's fine. It's only right I make up for what Mom did. Besides, I really love Dad and Mom. I can't part with them. I tilted my head, giving a playful smile. All right, then you can stay. Candy and Nolan both sighed with relief, their eyes flashing a hint of triumph. Little did they know, the days that followed would be a true nightmare. In the past life, I wasn't found until 10 years later, and I was in terrible shape when they found me. Because of the torments, I was a disgrace. Parents despised me. The one I loved loathed me. Everyone wished me dead. But this time, if Candy isn't around, how would this drama unfold? How would my dad's affair with her mom come to light? How would the whole house turn upside down? I want them all to pay one by one. The media was all over our family, calling us saints for repaying evil with good. True philanthropists. At the same time, they dug up everything about Candy's family. Everyone felt sorry for me, even knowing John ended up a cripple, knowing Wendy was severely burned and had to go to jail. As for Candy, she faced plenty of verbal attacks. People saying the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, saying she should atone through death, etc. Even at school, people who initially treated her kindly because of Nolan started giving her the cold shoulder. I loved studying, so after leaving the hospital, I went back to class with crutches and bandages. Before, I was a bit aloof, focusing solely on my studies. In the previous life, I was a good student, but after the setup, I was torn away from learning. So in this life, I've got to double my efforts. And I've got to get along better with classmates. I made an effort to connect with them. Sorry, can you grab that eraser for me? I can't bend down. Thanks a lot. Can you explain this question to me? I've missed too many classes, didn't quite understand the lecture. Thank you. Are you heading to the restroom? Can I come with you? Could you grab my crutch later? Awesome. This unexpected change stunned my classmates, and with my generous thanks and gifts, who wouldn't like me? Everybody knew Nolan was my fiancé. So when a classmate tipped me off, they said, Lily, while you were gone, Nolan and Candy were pretty close. Yeah, we talked about it a lot, like how he wasn't even worried or anxious when you were kidnapped, just acting all carefree. I pressed my lips together, looked firm, and said, there's no way Nolan would do that to me unless you've got some kind of proof. The sports committee rep, who never got along with Nolan, asked curiously, what if we do? I said seriously, then I'd break off the engagement with Nolan. The classmates instantly cheered and laughed, saying I shouldn't regret it later. People love drama, and even more love being part of making it. The last class was a meeting, and the teacher left Nolan in charge while they went to a meeting. The sports committee rep stood up and closed the classroom back door. Nolan frowned, annoyed. What are you doing? Sit down. The sports committee rep grinned smugly. There's a big reveal coming up. Everyone closed the front doors and windows. No matter how shocking, don't make a sound. The projector hummed to life, and the screen started rolling a video. Even though it was daytime, there was a slight glare, but watching was still fine. On screen, it was the rooftop, obviously secretly filmed. As soon as Nolan and Candy appeared, the classroom burst into murmurs. Nolan rushed to unplug the media equipment, shouting angrily, Ken, are you crazy? The sports committee rep smirked mischievously. Crazy? Nah, I'm just doing justice. You're Lily's fiancé, yet you're with the one who hurt her. Aren't you ashamed? Nolan looked at me, his expression dark, but he didn't apologize. After the hospital incident, we hadn't spoken. He knew I remembered why I was kidnapped. It was him who blocked my way when I tried to escape. I calmly said, Nolan, I'll let you and Candy be. I'll tell my parents tonight to call off our engagement. A flash of panic crossed Nolan's eyes. No way. He blurted out. I smirked. Why not? You think I can just pretend nothing happened? Do you even think you're worth it? Do you think I'd have given you the time of day if you hadn't been like a puppy, constantly begging for my attention? I continued. Your family's made quite a bit from mine, right? Still not enough for you? Laughter echoed in the classroom while Nolan's face turned beet red, his fists clenched tight. I casually said, Ken, take care of him. I'll handle it if anything happens. Ken whistled, eager for action. Candy ran to the back door to get a teacher, but was stopped and brought back in front of me. I raised my elbow and slapped her. Leaning over, I smiled and said, Does it hurt? But it wasn't as painful as when your mom hit me. Is your dad really a thug? Or does your mom not even know who your dad is, so she just picked someone? Everyone laughed, eyes full of disdain, with no sympathy. There's a reason people disliked her. Back in her sophomore year, she tricked a girl into the supply room to win a spot in an English competition, locking her in overnight. The girl missed the competition and caught pneumonia from the cold. She's now on medical leave, still recovering at home. Candy's flimsy attempt to brush it off with I forgot went by as Nolan privately compensated with some money. And just like that, it was over. Nolan's pained grunts came from the platform while sobs came from Candy below. Such sweet sounds. The bell rang, Everyone relaxed, laughing, grabbing their bags, heading home. Nolan walked unsteadily towards me, spitting blood at my feet. "We're even now," he declared. I slowly packed my bag, looking at him with disdain. "You mean you pairing up with Candy's mom to kidnap me? Do you know why I didn't go to the cops? Why I haven't told my parents?" He said nothing, only watched me warily. As I brushed past him, in a voice only we could hear, I whispered, "You don't really think what happened to Wendy and John was an accident, do you?" Nolan froze, stunned. I hobbled on my crutch as I left the classroom, hearing Candy's heart-wrenching cries behind me. Sick of her melodramatic act? Her leg healed long ago. She's just pretending to gain sympathy. When my parents came home and saw Candy in that state, they were shocked. Mom gasped, "Candy, what happened?" Candy's tears fell on the table, her voice hoarse. "I accidentally upset Lily." Dad frowned at me, displeased. "Lily, what's going on?" I replied nonchalantly, "Nolan and Candy were caught together." It disgusted me, reminded me of Wendy, and I lost it. Mom's sympathy turned to sarcasm. Serves her right. Dad remained silent, face cold. Candy teared up, looking incredulously at the lack of concern from my parents. Feigning innocence works in some families, but my mother has no tolerance for it. Since it was Dad who first mentioned my marriage to Nolan, this whole issue was embarrassing for him. So Candy's complaints earned her nothing but resentment. Realizing this, she quickly offered, "If it makes my sister feel better, I'm happy." That comment improved my parents' mood. They gave her some of the food, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Dad said, "If it really can't work out after all, they're both daughters of this family. It's fine if Candy goes instead." "Dad, you're so biased. Is Candy really your child? She does look a bit like you." I lazily propped my chin up, giving her a teasing grin. She laughed along, then quietly continued eating. Dad cleared his throat. "What nonsense. She's just an adopted daughter who looks like you, so we took her in." "Really? I wonder how Mom will react when she learns the truth." When Candy tattled to the teacher, she was moved to the back of the class. Nolan couldn't let her sit alone, so he moved with her. The two of them stuck together, losing focus on their studies. The last parent-teacher conference before exams, a motivational meeting. Nolan used to be the top student, proudly speaking at the podium. Now it was me, first in class and grade, confident and elegant. Especially impressive since everyone knew I missed 2 months of school, and still managed to leap ahead. Parents clapped wildly below, my mom and dad brimming with pride. Nolan's dad, scowling, slapped him right there. "Useless." Nolan's fists clenched, a fierce glare aimed at me. I smirked challengingly. A month before exams, doctors and nurses came for routine checkups. Seniors lined up in the gym, tired of endless papers and practice, happy for a break. Chatter filled the space. Girls worried about their weight, while boys peeked, laughing and joking. Candy stepped on the scale. The electronic voice announced, 163, 119. Her weight was a bit heavy. Girls giggled, so fat. Candy blushed hard, having gained a bit recently. Nolan gently comforted, "That's a healthy weight, they're just malnourished." Pouting, she pinched her stomach, sighing, "I'll diet after exams." Then she went into the cubicle for a checkup. Half an hour later, Mom rushed over from work and smacked Candy as soon as she saw her crying in the office. "I should have never adopted you," she said. "You're just like your no-good mom, no self-respect at such a young age." Nolan quickly stepped in front of Candy, feeling guilty. "I'm sorry, Auntie. It's all my fault." Mom scoffed. "No wonder when Lily was kidnapped, you handed her to us to ease our longing. You were all plotting against me." Nolan's mom arrived too and slapped him twice. "Your dad's gonna deal with you once you get home." She looked at my mom with a forced smile. "What about this whole mess?" Mom smirked. "That kid was dumped on us by your son. She's yours now. Do whatever you want." She gracefully left the office, tousled my hair, as she saw me watching by the door. "Stay away from her. Don't let her ruin you." I nodded obediently. "I got it." Candy was taken away by Nolan's mom. Mom instructed the servants to pack all her stuff and send it to the Song family. Servants heard that her family gave Candy $10,000 to leave Nolan, but he wouldn't agree. He was all dramatic, so she was put up in a house outside. Nolan came back to class a week later, looking exhausted, and his vibe towards me changed entirely. After class, Ken came up to me, speaking softly, "Lily, be careful. I heard Nolan's been hanging out with some shady folks." I blinked. "Got it, thanks, Ken." He grinned. "No worries, Miss Smarty Pants." It was my duty day, so by the time I left school, hardly anyone was around. Just as I was about to get in the car, I heard Nolan's voice from behind me. "Lily, I want to talk to you." He seemed afraid I'd refuse and quickly added, "It's my birthday today. I just want to say a few words. Is that okay?" Seeing his humble stance and no one behind him, I raised an eyebrow and walked over. "What do you want?" Nolan sounded sorrowful. "Lily, the sunset is beautiful today. I used to walk you home. Can I do it one last time?" I sneered. "Sure." I stepped forward, and he hesitated, quickly following, surprised I agreed so easily. After all, we had a serious falling out. He led me toward an alley again, but I stopped, hands in pockets, and lazily said, "So you planning to kidnap me again?" Nolan glanced around, seeing no one, and his smile turned sinister. He grabbed my hair, dragging me toward the alley. "Don't worry, this time's not a kidnapping. It's much scarier. Candy just wanted a family. Why did you have to push her this far? She can't even be a mom now. My folks ditched me too. Said I embarrassed them. Left me to fend for myself. Gave everything to my sister." "Oh really? That's great." I stopped struggling. The panic on my face shifted to a cold smile. And I pulled out pepper spray, spraying it in his eyes. He screamed, covering his eyes. "Ah, it hurts my eyes." His screams brought the thugs waiting in the alley out. I pulled out a wad of cash, tossing it over. "This is the deposit. Once you finish teaching him a lesson, I'll give the remaining balance." With that, I walked away. Though these guys were hired by Nolan, money makes them my guys now. The next morning, one of the thugs slipped me a flash drive. I handed him a thick envelope. He was thrilled and left happily. On the day of the exam, the school gate was packed with parents. I walked into the exam hall, starting my new life. Maybe because I got my revenge, I felt great, and my test skills were spot on. While everyone got their results, mine took a while since I was the top scorer. Once again, I made it to the newspaper's front page with my photo. At my graduation party, Nolan's parents showed up, usually with him, but now with Carrie. She eagerly linked arms with me. "Lily, congrats. You're amazing." I clinked glasses with her. "Congrats to you too. No more hiding your talents." She playfully stuck out her tongue, quietly saying, "Can't help it, parents favored boys. If you hadn't given me the video, I'd never get a chance. I owe you one for this. So, today I brought you what you need." Carrie placed the flash drive in front of me. "It's got evidence of your dad with Candy's mom. Took me ages to find. And I've got the DNA test of your dad and Candy for you too." I nodded with a smile. "Great. Kids in this circle aren't purely innocent. Once you have the evidence, you move forward together. Wonder if my dad's ready yet." College life was crazy busy, crammed with credit courses. I completed 4 years in 3 and went to business school. Being too excellent and outstanding, my parents made me join the company as top management and run projects with the help of past life's knowledge. I became a rightful deputy general manager, leading major projects for the company. I donated $100 million to my high school building a library, donated $1 billion to the university, constructing a science and technology museum, built a large factory in the city, providing 60,000 jobs, boosting the local economy. I became an accomplished entrepreneur on the Forbes Rich list, seen as promising and capable by everyone. I was in the spotlight for a while. Isn't this just your typical female protagonist rebirth story? Top scorer in college entrance exams, a dark horse in the stock market, a tech mogul. Every single identity is just bow down worthy. "Lily, you call this a feel-good novel?" I'm not feeling so good reading it. Reading their comments under the official account, I couldn't help but smirk. These netizens guessed it right. I saw Nolan again 6 months later. I had just signed a park project with the government. Driving home in my sports car, I spotted someone hunched over, picking up empty water bottles from a trash can. Out of kindness, I walked over with a takeout meal and a bottle of water, planning to drop it and leave. But then he happened to turn his head. Our eyes locked. "Nolan." I chuckled, turned around and walked away. He recognized me and immediately knelt in front of the car. knocking his head on the ground. Lily, please save me. I'm sick, I need a kidney transplant, only $300K. It's probably the price of one of your bags. I got in the car, rested my hand on the window, and lazily said, "Where's Candy? Weren't you two true love?" Nolan spat angrily on the ground. The unluckiest thing in my life was meeting her. He continued, "I broke away from my family, gave up everything, worked 3 jobs to support her, and she betrayed me." I smiled slightly. Nolan, did you forget something? He shut his yammering mouth and asked, flattering, "What?" I smirked lightly. "Did you forget? It was all me who brought you to this. Why would I help you? You know I wish you dead." With that, I hit the gas pedal, letting him eat my dust, watching in the rearview mirror as he raged. Nolan died. He somehow snuck into the parking lot where I lived, trying to scam or use his life as leverage against me. Ironically, I had been drinking that day. The driver didn't notice him lying on the ground and ran over him. In that moment, the screams sobered me up. Getting out of the car, I clicked my tongue. It was indeed a double blessing day. The fault was half the property management's and half Nolan's. So I handed Carrie humanitarian compensation money. She simply bought me a bag with it. "Lily, this bag is beautiful, really suits you." I laughed. "Right? Fits me perfectly." Carrie took Nolan's ashes and dumped them down the drain right in front of me. Even his own sister hated him. He really deserved it. I took the evidence Carrie gave me and anonymously sent it to my mom. My mom flew into a rage when she found out, caused a big scene at home. My dad tried to deny it, but with proof right there, he could only kneel and beg my mom. I messed up. It was just one time. Who knew she could really have my kid? My dad cried for mercy. "Now isn't our family doing well together?" I added quietly, "Dad, but what if I hadn't made it back? Wouldn't you naturally let Mom think Candy was her child? Wouldn't Mom be raising your kid?" Only then did my mom realize, got in her car, stomped the gas and shouted, "I'm gonna kill Candy." I hurriedly urged my dad, "Dad, hurry after her. Don't let Mom do something stupid." My dad rushed out, and I let someone confidentially inform my mom about Candy's location. Candy died on the spot. My dad, trying to save Candy, collided with my mom's car. They both got into an accident. The doctor said there was a chance they could be saved. I shook my head, signed the form to give up on treatment, saying, "Mom and Dad worked hard all their lives. I don't want their last moments to be so painful. As their daughter, I can't bear it." Then I donated $5 million to the hospital. Perfect split, 2.5 for each. They all paid the price. And me, I started living my good life. The end.